preferred one. They bring pressure. Nelson over the middle. Oh, he was caught on the deflection. Marcus Matthews. Right place, right time, right away. Can you believe that?
Defense, number 17. Penalty is declined. The result of the play, touchdown.
What you just watched was a pretty inconsequential BYU football win that not even the most diehard fans could recall off the top of their mind. For me, though, this was the game that made me a forever BYU sports fan. This play has also come to embody why I think BYU is consistently one of the best stories in the country, both in the past, present, and based on many factors, in the future as well. We'll set the scene for the context that was surrounding this play. Let's rewind back to 2010. The story actually starts in Oxford, Mississippi, where BYU began the season with an exciting and expectation-setting win. Now, I don't want to act like Ole Miss was a good team in 2011. They finished 2-10, but it was the first year of BYU independence, and it was exciting to beat an SEC team. We didn't know how good or bad we were going to be, and to start by winning with a fourth quarter comeback was awesome. It was awesome to drive down and score a touchdown pass and then come right back by forcing a fumble into the end zone to take the lead. Any fan base would take that to start their season, right? It was unfortunately a sign of bad things to come for BYU. That fourth quarter touchdown pass was the first score of the game for BYU, and it came after the quarterback, Jake Heaps, had thrown one interception. In hindsight, it's not promising to have your first offensive success in the fourth quarter. Fast forward to next week in Austin, Texas, where the Cougars took on the Texas Longhorns. Even more excitement built as the Cougars fans watched our team go up 13-3 over the Longhorns going into the half. Well, it quickly fell apart, and the offense was able to muster only a field goal in the second half as the Cougars fell 16-17. This came off 2 interceptions in the second half by Jake Heaps, which was a sign of more bad things to come. Still, hopes are high when you only lose by 1 point on the road against an SEC team. Then the wheels fell off. The Cougars would lose the most important game of every year, the Holy War. And we didn't just lose, we lost execution style. This execution filled me with emotions that were only comparable to watching George sacrifice his life to save Reach in the game Halo Reach that came around that same time during the same year. In BYU's case, George was Jake Heaps and Riley Nielsen was Noble Six. The make it count admonition
Tell him to make it count.
Would come in the Utah State game, and the Covenant ship exploding over Reach was the Utah game. The team literally exploded, getting blown out 10-54 as Jake Heaps had one of the worst plays in BYU football history, fumbling it into the back of the end zone on one of the first plays of the game. Well, usually after a team gets their brakes blown off by a hated rival, the season is pretty much over, especially when your 5-star quarterback had stat lines of 74-4 QBR and 2 interceptions versus Texas, 2 awful fumbles and an interception versus Utah, and a 31.1 QBR with under 50% completion percentage, and an interception. And then to cap it all off, a 21.4 QBR going 11 for 24 versus Utah State before getting benched. Everything up until that point said the Cougars were not, in fact, going to make it count. Staring down a 2-3 start with 2 losses to in-state schools, Riley Nielsen came in and was able to make it work, throwing the game-winning pass off of a tip with 11 seconds to go. This symbolizes my experience with BYU sports. Despite whatever the narrative is following the teams, we seem to figure it out and make something awesome happen. Going back over 40 years ago to the national title winning football team, not only are they the only team to win a national title outside of a power conference, they were a team that revolutionized the forward passing game in football. Despite having a lack of talent that so many other teams in bigger conferences had access to, Norm Chow and Lavelle Edwards changed the way football was played. From their legendary schemes and passing concepts, they are able to produce a Heisman winner in Ty Detmer just a few years later, who shattered records such as the career passing yards record, the career total offense record, and the career touchdown passes record, as well as the single season passing record, all of which stood at the time of him going off to the NFL. In some of the footnotes, often lost to history, Lavelle Edwards' BYU Cougars toppled some of the giants of college football lore. In 1980, against one of the most infamous teams in college football history, the future death penalty Pony Express SMU Mustangs, led by Eric Dickerson and Craig James, were pitted against the Jim McMahon-led Cougars. With 4 minutes left in the game, down 45-25, the Cougars made it an impossible comeback to win the Holiday Bowl. 10 years later, acting as a catalyst for Ty Detmer's Heisman, the defending back-to-back national champions, ranked number 1 in the country, came to Provo, the Miami Hurricanes. The BYU Cougars, coming in as 2-score underdogs, somehow upset one of the most iconic teams in college football history. In my lifetime, I've been able to witness some absolutely incredible moments as well. The biggest moment that comes to the forefront of fans my age is the improbable win over the number 3 Oklahoma Sooners, led by Heisman winner Sam Bradford and DeMarco Murray. The game, hosted for the first time in the brand new Jerry World, was finished by the iconic catch in the back of the end zone by McKay Jacobson. Looking back at that catch, it reminded me of the ending of the F1 movie, where Brad Pitt in the final lap takes the lead and is given just a wide open path to the finish line. Watching it, I had the same thought of, they're really just going to let him get that wide open? Brad Pitt's eyes really matched the demeanor of Jacobson, screaming, shivering, uncontainable celebration in the back of the end zone. And then later in that same year, we got one of the greatest speeches in college football history. After beating the hated Utah Utes, Max Hall gave his famous "I Hate 'Em" speech that would be played for the rest of eternity as the two teams prepare to play the Holy War.
Utah. In fact, I hate them. I hate everything about them. I hate their program. I hate their fans. I hate everything. So it felt really good to send those guys home.
Max Hall is the John Wick of BYU football in my mind. Just an absolute killer. Being a member of the BYU team, there is a national expectations that they will conduct themselves a little differently than your average college football player. Instead, Max Hall just lays into our hated rival. He broke the rules, and we love him for it. The speech reminds me of the ending of John Wick 2, where John Wick comes into the Continental and comes face to face with Santino D'Antonio, and with that smug look on his face, Antonio knows that he can't be shot, and without remorse, John Wick just executes him in front of everyone.
Lot of options.
Jonathan, listen to me.
A man can stay here a long time and never eat the same meal twice.
Jonathan, just walk away.
Yeah, Jonathan. Walk away.
And it's you can't even describe how it is to someone who doesn't know the Holy War like a BYU and Utah fan. It's why it's going to be played for the rest of eternity every time these teams meet. The amazing Taysom Hill performances against Texas hold a special place in my heart. The image of him flying in the air as he hurdles a defender is the BYU fans' equivalent of Michael Jordan's dunk from the free throw line. The fantastic game at Arizona State is another one lost to history, boasting names such as future Heisman winner and NFL Rookie of the Year Jaden Daniels, Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall, and Rashad White. With the Sun Devils unable to overcome the always slept-on Lavelle Edwards Stadium crowd, they attempted to mount a drive to take the lead down 21-17, and the Sun Devils false-started 4 straight times amidst the crowd noise. It was just absolutely electric.
Second and long. And they did it again. They did it again.
Offense number 70. 5-yard penalty.
With having just completed 2 straight years and more than 10 wins, the BYU Cougars continue to knock on the door of college football history. It was debated for 2 straight years on whether they should have made an appearance in the college football playoff, and it just makes the future even that much more fascinating. The BYU Cougars have one of the coolest histories of all time, and everyone better start paying attention because they're going to continue to be one of the most interesting stories for years to come.